Yeah, do you want to clap us in?
Oh, yeah.
I got the audio going, so just somebody in front of a mic do a clap.
I'll get you a 3, 2, 1 as soon as Amanda is in place.
Sitting.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everybody, to the Out of Home Insider Show, a podcast like no other, hosted by the one and only Tim Rowe. Get ready to have some knowledge dropped on you and to be entertained, because nothing's more valuable than food for your brain. So sit back, relax, we're about to dive in as the best industry podcast is about to begin.
Welcome to Out of Home Insider. This is the post-conference edition OAAA Geopath Breakthrough Conference just concluding. I've got Adam Malone, David Weinfeld, and of course Amanda Dorenberg. We're here at the Screenverse penthouse, live from the penthouse, which is pretty exciting. It was a much different atmosphere here last night, buzzing with all sorts of folks. I think you guys definitely turned into the after party of the event. So congratulations!
Thank you. It was super fun.
Thanks for hosting us.
Yeah, I had a great time, and a great time here in Nashville all week. A question to start us all off, though, really is, what excited you most? What was the most exciting takeaway this week? And Adam, I'll start off with you.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's just great to get the band back together. What that means for Screenverse is there were 5 of us here, and we're a fully remote company. So any opportunity for us to get together and bond and have a couple dinners and have some late nights and some conversations is always beneficial. And then that extends to, there were 1,000 people here, and we've been coming to these for many, many years. I've been, probably at least 10, 12 of these myself.
Wow.
So it's great to see old friends. And then in terms of the content and in the actual conference, I'm looking to be inspired and I'm looking to learn. And I thought I did both of those things.
I think that's a great objective to come with, and to be able to leave with saying that you accomplished it is congratulations are in order. Dave, how about yourself?
Yeah, for me, I loved hearing, and this is always the case, from brands, from the account executives at the out-of-home media owners, their clients, and how they executed successful campaigns. We heard from Gooder. We heard from an account executive at Lamar who did a campaign for a heating and air conditioning company.
Heating.
Mahalo.
Yeah,
That was great.
And then we heard from Outfront and Poppy, and that was cool. And it was kind of hearing
we got
about
to get matching sweatpants. I'm just
for sure. Next time,
Next time.
after party, everybody in Screenverse sweatpants. But yeah, it was great to hear from those and really being able to reconnect. It's funny, even though a lot of people came from New York or a lot of people come from a general area, there's something about being at a conference where it creates, I think, that separation from kind of the office environment.
It's a vibe.
Yeah, it's a vibe.
It's a vibe. Nashville is a vibe. For sure.
It's a vibe.
It's not a vibe I want every day, but it's
No.
It's cool.
3 or 4 days of the week, a year, and I think that we
It's
can
like
come back
Vegas.
and do it again.
It's enough. Like a couple days, and then you need to go home.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, Amanda, you've brought a bunch of the team here from COMMB.
Yes.
From speaking of coming from places, coming all the way from Canada, there were a lot of folks here. Thank you for making the trip.
For hosting us.
Yeah, of course. Why does COMMB participate in these international events? Why is it so
we
important
have a pretty
to COMMB?
big international presence, which I'm quite proud of. But I think this particular event specifically, we wanted to learn from our counterparts. We wanted to connect with our U.S. colleagues. We're very close with Geopath, with the OAAA, so we want to make sure that we maintain those relationships. And for me, bringing my team down and bringing our head of data science and our head of member engagement, marketing, the team needs to be here. We need to make sure that we're a part of the industry. We've got a big voice, so I'd like to be a part of it. And
not to plug too early, but speaking of highlighting brands, you've got an award show coming up.
We do.
Just in a couple weeks.
A little bit. May 25th.
Pretty soon.
Yeah. So I hope everybody comes up to Toronto for that, because it's going to be a good one.
Absolutely.
We've got some tricks up our sleeve for that.
Okay.
It will be an experience.
Looking forward to that.
It's not a conference. It's actually going to be like a crazy award
show.
It's just an award show. Yeah.
Well, this whole week was about breaking through. David, I'd love to hear from you. What was your breakthrough moment? What was the thing that really stood out as being that breakthrough, that innovative idea?
Yeah, I loved hearing from as always, the programmatic teams, the platforms, agencies like Matterkind, others talking about data, talking about audiences, even the conversation around the MRC and Purview and Geopath and how do we normalize against a standard is all about, in my mind, how do you make the inventory more accessible on a platform basis? And to me, that's going to be a massive breakthrough moment for the industry.
I have a lot of opinions on that.
I'm sure. Adam, add to that. How does that all align for Screenverse?
Yeah, so it's interesting because Screenverse we pride ourselves as being part of the growing part of the growing part of the industry. So it's about bringing net new, entirely digital networks of inventory to the marketplace, whether we direct sell them or sell them through programmatic exchanges. So we're living on the innovation side of the industry. And what I love about coming to the OAAA and what's so, in some ways, inspiring, but also maddening for those of us that live this sort of innovation piece of it, is this is a billboard conference, right?
True.
It is driven by the big operators, the big media owners. They throw a great show. It's at the Grand Hyatt. It's a beautiful, it's a spectacle.
Yeah.
And it really shows you that the base and the power and the fact that Lamar's 120 years old and you can smell it in a room like that. It's like, money.
It's cool. It's special to be around. Yeah. Like, I don't think that there's a lot of industries where you have generations of the industry in the same room.
I literally met.
Special.
I was a part of a conversation where one guy was talking to another guy, and they were reminiscing about starting in the industry together in 1984.
I was 1 year old.
Yeah,
I was one.
I'm like,
flex.
Yeah,
but that's not abnormal in this space. It's very normal in this space. So, so it's cool to kind of like my everyday is trying to be cutting edge, and then it's sort of interesting to come to a place like this and say like, okay, what are you guys experiencing and how are you guys thinking about this? And yeah, we do want to find places where we can say, hey,
I think
we
it's kind of
figured a few
humbling
things
though.
out.
Like it's humbling to be able to be in those situations where we can be the innovators, the disruptors, but then we can learn off of the history and the legacy, if you will. It's not necessarily legacy, but we can learn from this. You know what I mean? And I love those conversations.
So much experience.
So much experience, literally. Yeah, teach me. Teach me.
I want to know,
me,
right? You've already tried this. Help
me
to avoid those same pitfalls, and maybe we can
not
find
make
a better way to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's great too. You're talking to the independent billboard operators who I love because at the end of the day, they're all entrepreneurs. There's so many founders and people who are building businesses from the ground up. And one, there's an eagerness to learn about the technology component and the programmatic side. But also, I love hearing about what their challenges are. What does their day-to-day look like? And how does it fit together with what my team's day-to-day? And how do we possibly bring those pieces together? And it's really, them taking the time to learn and hear from, whether it be Vistar, Place Exchange, any of those companies, but also listening to fundamentally what their needs are, because you don't want to break their core business because it works.
And then finding a way to align all that to, who we're all trying to serve, which is with the brands with the money, right? How do we solve the independent billboard owners' pain point, which may or may not be aligned to the pain point that would make our lives easier? How do we do all of those things? Amanda, not asking you to speak on behalf of anybody officially, but that's what you're charged with in Canada. How do you approach alignment of so many different stakeholders with different objectives?
I like to call it a political game of chess. Everybody has a different opinion, but everybody's opinions are rooted in a need at some point. So my job is to listen to what that need is and to try to facilitate. So on the buy side, they have different needs. On the sell side, they have different needs. On the tech stack, they have different needs. But fundamentally, for me as an association head, my job is to try to facilitate. And whether that be facilitating standardization, which is something that we do, productization, which is again something that we do, or whether it's just networking, like literally that is the job of my association, both on the measurement side as well as on the marketing side. In Canada, we're a combination of the OAAA and Geopath, so it's a bit different. We do both, where you guys have two separate associations that sort of operate independently. I like to say we're fortunate to be able to have both, because any initiative that we're doing from a measurement perspective, we have the opportunity to market that however the industry wants us to market that. There's no competition in that space.
So creating alignment between, and I think that the one speaker that was a great theme that he really drove home, which was aligning behind the shield, telling our collective story, and how do we all get together? We're all
everything
just individuals, but
for us.
At the end of the day, we could be a champion too, and pick up that shield and carry it ourselves. So I think that a little bit of that is the onus of each of us to do that and kind of have conversations like that and be able to do that. One of the things that stood out to me were some of the brand perspectives this morning, hearing from T-Mobile, hearing from the Creative Lab at TripAdvisor, and hearing really a theme that I know isn't new to anybody, but to hear it continue to be echoed is exciting. And that is, out of home is grassroots at scale, and there's nothing that can do what out of home does.
It's very true.
That really stood out to me. Adam, was there anything like that from a brand perspective that was a key takeaway that you're just, wow, we've got to listen to this. This is what the brand is saying.
I'm not going to regurgitate what I heard today, but I did have a conversation with somebody that there was an omni-channel marketer, clearly tons of experience buying in what we think of as sort of core digital, traditional digital, mobile web, an omni-channel perspective. And one of the things that he said, and it was a kind of a breakthrough moment for him, is he thought that out of home, because it's so mass market, and because it offers so much reach, he thinks a major blind spot with the traditional digital work that they do being so targeted, you're just reinforcing this, like you're creating a segment and you're speaking only to that segment, and you're not allowing a broader audience to discover you.
How do you find new reach?
Yeah. How do you, and he was like, that is going to be, I'm going to take this to all my brands, and we're going to think about, basically expanding instead of, we think a lot, and I think the industry thinks a lot about how do we target, how do we make it so that there's very little waste, right?
I think it has to be a blend, though.
Yeah, but
this is one of the things.
It challenged my, it's kind of like my brain was tailored to it has to get more and more and more precise. And I think what he was saying to me was,
it has to be
no, I don't think so. No. I think there's value in having that level of reach.
I say this all the time in the sense of like out of home, it has to be strategic. So it's got a place at the top of the funnel. It's got a place at the bottom of the funnel. It just depends on what your KPI is. And I think that from a strategic perspective on the buy side, obviously, they understand what they're doing, but out of home definitely has the mass reach, but it also has the capacity to be very, very specific, to be very niche, to be very targeted, to a point where statistically it may not even be relevant. You're trying to be so targeted. Sure. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like your audience is just segmented or fragmented so much.
Yeah. And Andy Cerebus from Outfront had a really great kind of tying in the role of
data
exactly at each level in the funnel, and
he did well with that.
How you don't measure with the same data currency necessarily.
No, but it's interesting because the same data is used both in digital as well as static. Like, and people always think, oh, okay, well, programmatic digital out of home. So that's like the high, tech, let's say. It's like, that's where all of the data and analytics are, but it's the same data is being used in the static side of things. It's same stuff being used in transit. It's just applied differently. It's executed differently. Programmatic might be executed systematically, but a static poster still using the same data is just, applied in a physical capacity.
Yeah, you can still measure outcomes. You can still use it to do attribution and bring forth the data that ultimately is what drives hundreds of billions of dollars of spend in digital year in and year out. And so the recognition that, out of home in many cases is big, beautiful, creative. It's, spectacular. It's Times Square. It's, Young and Dundas. It's,
nice. Thank you.
Yeah, nice. Giving the Canadian shout out. But it also fundamentally is a medium that now you can measure and you can drive against those core KPIs. You can use it as, looking at offline to online and the conversion metrics. And that can happen static or digital.
Let me give you some stats that stood out to me from Dylan's speech today on the last day, and then Mark Boydman a little bit later. Out of home reaches 90% of the U.S. population in 1 week. Just the Geopath audit, 90% of the U.S. population. That's incredible. Geopath audited inventory delivers 60 billion impressions, the last channel with mass reach. And to Mark Boydman's slides in that presentation, the last traditional offline channel that's continuing to grow.
Constantly.
How do we use it? It's $10 billion today. How do we get this to 15, 20, $100 billion? We're still a small piece of the pie. We've got so much ammunition. Adam, how do we get this to be so much greater that we can all get so excited about coming to a conference and having more than 1,000 people?
Yeah. So you can look at the macro. It still comes down to audience, right? Fundamentally, the media value of the entire industry truly is, what's our opportunity to reach audiences? And I think that one of the wins that are a little bit at our backs, there's a technology win, right? The cost of, screens, the cost of connectivity, which would have prohibited supply growth. That's going down. So that's a force multiplier. So we're going to be able to get in front of even more audiences, right? So the total media value that we can reach through our screen networks and our bulletins, et cetera, is going to continue to grow. So the supply is going to grow. And then the technology and the data and a lot of the work that the industry is pulling together and doing is really attracting, more of this demand that's out there. And that's really going to fuel the demand side of things. And that's going to be a wonderful thing when those two things come together. And that's going to drive growth for the next decade or more. So, I think everyone is thinking about targeting the, $100 billion digital ad ecosystem in the US, especially with all the changes in privacy. You can kind of project out what that's going to happen.
From a privacy perspective,
Talk about privacy.
On a global scale, the privacy legislation that's the changes in legislation is happening exponentially.
Are we ahead or are we behind in that conversation here in the States relative to the global scale?
I think we're a little bit behind.
Okay. Yeah. That's not, I think that's a conversation.
But we're moving in the right direction.
We're moving in the right direction for sure. But we've got CCPA. That's a one state. It's not like a federal legislation.
Right.
There's federal legislation coming down the pipe in the Canadian space, GDPR in the European space. There's a lot of legislation in the UAE and in Asia. I think we're a little bit behind. That said, I don't think that that's going to affect us. I actually think it's going to be a benefit for us in the sense of what's happening from a digital perspective and the cookie-less world. That's going to help out of home. It's truly going to help out of home. We're going to grow.
Really levels the playing field.
It levels the playing field. What we're going to see is a cannibalization of assets. So we're going to cannibalize some of the static assets. We're going to convert them to digital, and then we're just going to be a little more flexible.
But it's smarter. Also, that idea of accessibility and whether it be unifying inventory on a programmatic platform or making the inventory accessible via APIs. That was something that Sean Riley at Lamar said very clearly we're open architecture. We want our boards to be able to be found on any platform, any place to be bought. And so there's that element of buying is getting easier. It's getting more efficient, but then the education piece and it's educating. It's one thing, the brands that have leaned into out of home, right? We all know the key brands, the Apples and the others who are spending an overweight amount of their yearly budgets on out of home relative to other channels. It's really about those brands and companies that are less than 1% or zero who have spent in radio, newspaper, other traditional channels who, to me, I see that as the massive opportunity, right? Is getting those types of brands to lean in, but that's going to require education across the entirety of the industry because it's not going to be one company that unlocks it or one operator or, it's
education, but it's also, we can't compete with the online space. So for me, fundamentally, I think we need to take away the term, let's compete, let's steal money from this or that. We need to be complementary. Let's shift the narrative. How are we advantageous to your overall holistic campaign, to your holistic KPIs? Like, what is your objective and how can we actually help facilitate that in the out-of-home industry?
Well, I'm a massive proponent of the idea of
So I don't want to jump in.
He's sitting on his hands. He's looking at me like to tag. It's like a WWE match. He wants me to tag me in.
No, believe it or not. No, I'm as your co-host, Tim, of the Out of Home Insider podcast. I actually wanted to turn to you.
Self-appointed.
I wanted to turn to Tim for this, actually, and tee you up a little bit because, right, you're in an innovation role at a major out-of-home specialist agency now. And we just talked about ways to unlock and make it easier make it more accessible. How do we there were some great case studies on social.
Oh yeah, there was some good stuff.
Oh, it was so good. Influencers were posting and then they ended up on screen networks and then they were taking pictures of them and it was
TikTok
really beautifully done. Yeah.
So the integration, like the thoughtfulness to how are we going to integrate the influencers? I thought they executed that incredibly.
It was great.
Massive.
So sitting where you sit, again, a major specialist agency innovation role. I mean, was there a thing or two that you're going to take back home and expose your clients to?
I think the thing that I'm most excited about were some of the folks that I met on the expo floor. There were a bunch of little companies that this was their first entry into anything out of home. They come from a completely outside industry, and having conversations with some of the folks there and learning about their business and what's their interest in out of home and how did this free rideshare electric vehicle company start scaling in Florida, and they have 500,000 active app users each month that are using their free rideshare platform, and now advertisers can wrap the cars and have an in-app, right? Like it's cool. I didn't know that company existed, and now I do, and now I can take that back and introduce our brands to that when they want to do something more grassroots. And how do I tie into the social good of the community? Well, in Southern California, there's a company that I can do this with. So for me, it was finding new companies like that that can add value to our brands.
Okay. So let me, probably an answerable question, but I think if you look at the attendee list, there's 1,000 people and 60 are agency buyers. That's not, that is the ratio, whether it's good or whether it's not good. The clients and the agencies are not well represented at this conference. First, do you think it's a problem? And if you do think it's a problem, then how do we get more clients and agencies to come?
I think it's certainly a problem if the objective is to get brands and agencies to come. But maybe
wait, we don't know what the objective was.
But maybe in all defense, maybe that's not the objective. It is. It's a great out of home conference, and we talked about the people and so much. There's a lot of great that happens here.
Yep.
The objective is to reach marketers and brand decision makers. Personally, the program didn't resonate top to bottom. I think that for me, as an innovation lead at an out-of-home specialist, I'm far more interested in hearing from the folks that are 6 levels deep, pulling levers. I want to hear from the people that are at the brands executing the experiential campaign at scale, that are going through. Those are the people that I want, because that's how I learn. That's how I can bring back more innovative solutions.
We need to get them on stage
for our clients
in order to get them to come.
I don't know where that stage is, but I would love to see them on stage, and I would be there with bells on.
Well, I love the
Come
idea.
to Canada on May 25th.
Yeah, awesome.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
I love the idea of those paired presentations where you have an account exec who maybe has never been at OAAA before, bringing one of their brands, whether it's a local brand, regional, national, and talking about why did this campaign work? Why did Out of Home get on the plan? And then at the same time, you want to hear from maybe one of the DSPs and their omni-channel agencies or buyers and hear about, okay, what are some of the challenges that you're overcoming to get digital out of home at it? Because one of the things that I just see as a major opportunity and challenge is this idea of you're talking to a national brand and they're spending a ton in digital, and maybe they leaned into out of home, maybe not, or they go, out of home's not on the budget this year. And you go, well, digital is on the budget, right? Like, yeah, of course we're spending in digital. Well, why won't you consider digital out of home in that same type of execution mindset. And I really like to have those conversations and to hear from those brands. I know, Adam, you loved hearing from some of those D2C brands who, in my mind, they're spending thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, day in and day out on performance media, on digital channels, massive opportunity for our segment. So tell me, what was most impactful from that panel?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think, so it was one of those breakout panels. Oh, no, there's actually two super good D2C. The one that Nick Sharma did on the main stage, which was excellent. Maybe even the panel of the conference. And then there was a breakout that Brian Rappaport from Quan and Ian Dallimore sat on. And then person from Matterkind that was talking about pharma. And then two other brand marketers. And what I kind of gleaned from both of those is, there is a tried and true performance marketing muscle that gets built up over time, and they get really good at that. And but there's a one trick pony element of it too, and it works until it doesn't work. And there are certain brands that are that might plateau, and they're looking to create more of a presence in the real world. They recognize the benefit of being ubiquitous in a market, and being able to just have kind of like a persistent presence in a market, and how that actually benefits everything in the funnel, and every metric is sort of
it kind of goes back to the conversation of
accelerated with that.
What is the KPI? Because you could be upper funnel or you could be lower funnel. It just depends on like what your KPI is.
Yeah, and with
but it's education,
social media content, and things like that. The best way to grow a following is consistency, right? Consistent, quality, thoughtful, and you just put it out. And I think that there's recognition at some of these D2C brands where they need to be consistent in the way that they promote themselves in the real world, as well as being tactical. And then when there's an opportunity to be in the zeitgeist, right? when Wendy's is Wendy's Twitter account is trending, like that's a really great time to go and blow out and spread that and really do, something big and take advantage of that. And I just love to see how brands are thinking about, and the one other thing I'll say, and I don't remember if it was from this panel, but I've been just noodling on this really since that time, is the creativity starts at, the idea starts at, then you can look to apply the tech. And I thought that, I don't know if you guys were part of that, if you thought about that, but that's just been sticking in there for me. It's like, okay, for a lot of us that are in innovation, we think about our media or our tech or our solution and how can we apply it to places, rather than start with what are we trying to accomplish and why. Who are we trying
back
to
reach?
Basics.
It's out of home.
Exactly.
It's back to basics.
Yeah, but you have to start there with a client, get them bought into that, and then apply the technology and the media as a solution to it.
On the technology side, I would have loved to have seen something about out of home in the metaverse, because it's big overseas. But
we've got that episode coming soon. So right behind this.
No chat GPT.
No chat GPT. I know.
We didn't hear that.
They talked about it on the CEO panel.
Oh, they did.
Oh, they did.
It came up.
Okay.
The application of AI. They even talked a little bit about
the last panel.
a little bit about the metaverse, and they were saying, all right, how do you apply AI to your businesses? And they started by saying, well, in some ways, it's already being infused in sales management, sales coaching, infused in how we kind of create narratives, maybe a little bit testing on the creative side. Again, nothing in true full application. Then there was a little bit of a back and forth about what it means for out of home in the metaverse. And Jeremy Mail said very, I think, astutely that out of home in the physical world, there's a finite amount. And especially adding billboards in the physical world, there's regulations, there's costs, there's licensing.
It's heavy.
That flips on its head in the metaverse. And then the idea of is there ownership? Do you just mass produce out of home? And it's just a totally different animal.
One of the components where education is key, because people don't understand this. It's a completely new world, particularly for out of home, which is a very traditional media. It's so new to everyone. And there's very few experts, let's say, in this particular topic, whether it's blockchain, Web3, metaverse, but overseas, like it's happening massively in Asia, in the UK. Like there are major out-of-home companies, I will not mention them, that are actually running campaigns in the metaverse where they have built and they own their own assets within a particular metaverse. So you partner with a specific metaverse, but it's education, in my opinion. And so when we get on these stages where we've got an audience of 1,000 people and it's a topic that's so foreign, let's take that opportunity and break it down. Like break it down. What is this? How can we capitalize on it? How can we monopolize on this? How can we ensure that we understand, from a traditional media perspective, how we can evolve into something that's 2.0, 3.0, whatever.
Well, what I thought was so interesting is Adam Malone from Wander Labs or TripAdvisor was talking about that example of which
the
is
TripAdvisor
so cool.
overworld.
Yeah.
Experience the trip before you take the trip. That travel is one of the most expensive purchases we make without trying it. And I think it's interesting. So selfishly, from a brand perspective, I look at the metaverse, and there's an episode that'll be coming out on the podcast shortly after this with the founder of a Web3 metaverse company. If I could create the advertiser's campaign in a Web3 metaverse platform and show it to them there first, how many more deals am I going to? I don't need out front to go create more space in the metaverse.
But Paris Hilton did a massive campaign with Boohoo.
Right, just give me a platform where I can simulate my campaign in the metaverse before I say yes to it. Right. If I'm a media owner, now I can create my markets as a Web3 experience where now the market ride has been replaced by the metaverse.
But you still start with the fundamentals of creative.
You have to start.
with that.
And I think really choosing to adopt it, lean into it, and say this is something that we're going to incorporate into our business, and this is the next piece of infrastructure.
It's not been done in North America yet. Nobody's
So,
leaning into this yet in North America. I'd love to see who the first is going to be. From a media owner perspective, who's it going to be? Let's take some bets right now.
Who put me
I
down
got
this
a
path.
few.
My son is really the one who kind of got me thinking about it. Is I'm watching him watch YouTube gamers play Grand Theft Auto, and I'm sitting there watching and going, this is the best way to sell out of home that you could possibly imagine. We're driving around the streets. I could see the billboard. We could swap creative in and out, right? And then really applying that as a metaverse. And the TripAdvisor conversation was really interesting because they talked about using out of home as the moment, using the content to engage and initiate the customer experience, and using augmented reality. What do you do? Where do you put the consumer? Now I can put them in a virtual store. If I'm Calvin Klein, I can do this hand-painted mural with a flow code QR code that tracks all the way through to buy completion. But now I'm shopping in the metaverse, right? How do we start to have those conversations? Those are things that excite me when we talk about Web3.
Well, really what you're talking about too is using out of home as a gateway to something bigger and broader. And that even was what Poppy did, right? The idea of connecting to the influencers, tying that back to their social. It resonated, and it was just like in real life, back to social, back to in real life, turning around. The TripAdvisor example is, really creating that narrative and bringing it into the physical world, but having it extend far beyond. And Amanda, to your point earlier, the idea of, it doesn't have to be like this is better than that, or we're trying to wrestle money away from another channel. It's a force multiplier. It's complementary. It should be in every plan.
Yes.
If digital is on your plan and on your budget, then in my opinion, digital out of home should be part of that, because even if it is static, you can apply a digital strategy against that, an outcome-based approach, an audience-based approach, and creating that flywheel that ultimately, to me, is what drives exponential growth. And the more type of examples that you hear of brands actually doing those things and executing, and how they think about it relative to all their other media spend, I think is really key. Even
on a 360 from an attribution perspective. So we were talking about this earlier before we started this podcast. In the Canadian space, we've created these automated view sheds, which will pass through as shapefiles to all of our tech stacks, all of our media owners. But the whole purpose of that is not so that we have control. It's literally so that we can actually provide some sort of baseline. So from your point, or to your point, the 360 funnel, yes, there needs to be some sort of standardization in the sense of like, okay, how are we starting from a data collection perspective? But then when we deliver the campaign, what happens after that from an attribution perspective? It needs to be grounded or rooted in the same fundamental baseline and KPI. And so that's where we came up with, okay, well, let's just pass through these shapefiles. And I think that that's going to be a pretty cool big thing.
And that's the thing that I get most excited about is seeing the industry get even better at telling the story of what happened during the campaign and how did we
during and post.
Right. How did we as partners help to drive the outcome that the brand set out to achieve in the beginning and getting away from, I have to prove what my thing did, right? How do we collect? Because we know that out of home doesn't just operate in a vacuum. It doesn't, it's the 1 + 1 = 3. It's the ultimate multiplier.
This is the same
how
thing.
Do we
we
tell
can't be
holistic
competing.
stories?
How do we be complementary?
Right.
So in order to be complementary, we need to create some sort of standard and then pass that along and share it. Be completely transparent. Here's the standard. Here's what we're going to give you. And everybody works up the same baseline.
That's it. These are the rules, and you apply them how you would
however
like to.
You want to run your business. It's not up to me.
We're going to San Diego next year. I don't know how much time we have to plan for that trip. Adam, I'll start with you. Move down the panel. But what are you most excited about between now and next year?
Planning the after party. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, if you weren't here, then you have
finding
to be
the next
year.
penthouse,
Finding the next penthouse.
getting that on the budget.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to get that number approved by David is going to be most of my next 365
We had proof of
days.
concept this year,
for
though.
sure.
Yeah. Strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah. So it's a really good question. I know what Screenverse looks like in the next 12 months. I know what we aspire to be. I know.
And what is that?
Well, we're going to just pull out the strategic plan and read it. No, I mean, look, it's the fundamentals of our business are not going to change. It's about getting great inventory. I talked about media value at the macro level earlier. We look at it. We try to evaluate potential partnerships and try to understand the inherent media value of those networks and those screens, and then what we're uniquely able to deliver against those screens, right? And then we try to promise only what we can deliver, and so we're going to stay true to that. So we'll probably grow. Our networks are growing; they're doing very well. They're continuing to invest and get bigger and serve more audiences. So that will continue. We're going to invest in great people. So we have a 20-person team right now. We're hiring 3 additional positions right now. And in 12 months we'll be, 27, 29, probably something like that.
Well done.
And then, the third thing is we want to stay on the cutting edge, and we want to try to bring the future forward as much as we can. And that means, really trying to support those initiatives that we think are going to really unlock a lot of new spend and a lot of new dynamism. So the super nerdy technical conversation about standardization, like we want to be helpful in that. Like we want to support that standard. We want to get all of our partners to have Geopath IDs, to have COMMB IDs, right?
I got
and
you.
Just sort of, do that. I know
got an API for you.
Yeah. And then we want to continue to have those conversations with brands and challenge them and support them as much as possible. So that's what we'll do for the next 12 months. And then we'll host a really great party again and see everybody and celebrate, another great year.
Let's see if we can close save now. David, we look forward to another Screenverse
for sure.
function of some sort next year.
It's in the budget.
It's on video. It's on video, bro.
We did that for you.
This is happening, even DPAA before the year's over. It's kind of, it's a thing now. I'm happy with it.
Toronto,
Adam,
come on.
Yeah.
May.
Toronto,
All right, it's starting to get expensive. Now David signed up for like 3 or 4 parties already.
But I look forward a year from now. So we announced a partnership with Apparatics in order to help independent billboard operators make their way in the programmatic world, right? And again, these are companies who have historically sold a very particular way. You think about their businesses and who have built great businesses, but also they're not getting their fair share relative to some of the largest companies in out of home, especially in programmatic. And so to me, a year from now, I hope that we can, speak about with some of our partners and speak about the success in getting them more of their share of the pie. Like to me, nothing would be better than to have an operator who really was kind of in the weeds with DSP, SSP, DMP, CPM. And we help demystify that to the point where they understand it, but also where they're seeing the relative success that they deserve. And to me, that will be so fun. The other piece then, I'm going to be, asking for this pretty heavily is, we had these great breakout sessions, right? There was one with Place Exchange and the Trade Desk and Firefly. Then there was breakout session with Vistar and Matterkind and, other members, but they were programmed at the same time and in small rooms. And they were, I'm telling you, you had brain power in those rooms.
And pent up brain power wanting to get into
but you wanted to go see both and you couldn't. You're competing. Which one am I going to?
And so I'm saying put that on the main stage, give them more time, let them, talk about what's interesting, what the challenges are, what's opening it up. I love seeing more, kind of DSPs like StackAdapt was here, Basis was here. Kind of growing that footprint. When are we going to see Criteo? When are we going to see more of the retail media networks?
Hypersell was here.
I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for us to grow the space in a way that doesn't change out of home. Like out of home is great for the core reasons for people that built businesses in 1984. When it was predominantly static, very little, to zero digital. But now we're in a space where the core things that make out of home great should always be front and center. But we need to also welcome and open it up and share that education and learning and have those sessions with PX and Vistar and Hivestack and Trade Desk and, Firefly and hopefully Screenverse and, Amanda from COMMB and just kind of wax on how is this industry going to evolve over the next year, 3 year, 5 years? And how do we bring everyone?
Amanda, I'll frame the question a little differently. For you, what's the thing you would challenge us with? Taking away
with a little bit loaded question.
It's a little bit of a loaded question, but
we've
already cleared with PR. No, I'm just kidding. No, truly, this is a little bit of a loaded question. I am catching Amanda off guard here. We didn't talk about this.
Continue the question. It's good.
But give us as an industry a challenge. What's something that we can focus on over the next 12 months to add more value as an industry?
That is a very good question. I think transparency and education, frankly. One of the biggest successes, if we've done anything right in the Canadian space that's gotten a lot of international presence, is full-on transparency. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is how we're doing it. And we socialize it to the max.
No gatekeeping.
There's no gatekeeping. It's literally here it is. Open book. You want the white paper. You want everything completely open. You want every level of measurement. I don't care. I'll give it all to you. Here it is. Just full on transparency is what I would challenge, and education, I think, is going to be key as well.
And that's something that we can all apply to all of our companies.
Yeah,
it's not something that we
do this.
We don't need the industry to do it for us. We can do that as media owners. We can publish our spec sheets on our website and make it really easy to go get those things. The amount of time that gets wasted on trying to chase down spec sheets.
Literally, we're about to launch a massive product this fall. And for the last year, all we've been doing is running around, educating, talking about what we're doing, showcasing the product to those who have invested in the product itself. It's not live. I'll show you a demo of it. You want to see it? You want to have access to it? You can play around with it. You want to break it? Perfect. Let me know that it's broken before we go live.
And I'll take that as a segue for the thing I'm most excited about over the next 12 months. It's seeing the collective energy here. The thing I see different this year that I didn't see last year is more willingness to have deeper, more collaborative, challenging conversations. Talk about the things that really hurt, right? Here's the pain. How do we all solve this? This is such a dynamic panel. I'm excited to be a part of it. But that's the thing that I'm excited about is more willingness to solve problems. at
We
our
can't change the
business
industry
level.
unless we have uncomfortable conversations.
I agree. With
Yeah,
partners, how do we all make it a
Be
little
open
better?
about the challenges. Be open
Literally.
about the pain points.
Yeah.
Like this conversation, we've talked about some things that were warm and fuzzy, and some things that maybe weren't. A little bit prickly and prickly and stickly. There we go.
Prickly and stickly.
Yeah, I think that's
Love
it's
it.
not a
It's
thing.
a
It
national
should be
thing. It's a national thing.
Yeah. That's what we're going with.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I couldn't thank you enough for being here. This has been a tremendous honor for me. Adam, David, you're the host here. This is your place. Why don't you take us out as the host?
I'll leave it to Adam. He set this whole thing up.
Thank you, Adam, for
Thank
setting
you,
this
Adam.
up.
Thank
Sure.
you.
No,
Truly,
of course,
thanks,
of course. That was great. See everybody, and thanks, Tim,
Thanks, guys.
for the exposure and the opportunity again to talk to you. It's been great hanging out. And if we saw you here in Nashville, it was great seeing you. And we'll see you next year in San Diego.
See you in San Diego.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
And scene.
Quarter century, I finally came to my senses. I finally got my hand up on the tinted Benz, kid. I see the world clear through my tinted lenses. With the dream and the drive, the possibilities endless. Now print that, send this all the way to Tokyo. Take a trip down south, down to Mexico. Next stop, Shanghai, the world-class trade show. First class all the way, cause that's how we roll. Yeah, call us the rock star businessman. Rockin' shows, we handle business, man. We got our own future in the palm of our hands, cause divided we fall and together we stand.